Hello and welcome to this India Today special, the race for a corona drug. As it appears increasingly likely that a vaccine for corona is months if not years away, the focus is on drug treatment. Joining this race is a drug that has just been cleared by the drug controller and the health ministry. Itolizumab is India's first indigenously manufactured corona drug. To tell us more on this and to discuss the wider issue of the race for a corona drug, three very special guests. I'm joined by Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, Executive Chairperson at Biocon. I'm joined by Dr. Shashank Joshi. He is Mumbai based and is the Dean of the Indian Council of Physicians. And I'm joined also by one of India's top physicians. Joining us from Mumbai is Dr. Hemant Thakkar. I appreciate all of you joining us here on Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, to you, because Biocon has developed Itolizumab. Tell us a little bit more about this. Is this only, as the health ministry seems to suggest, for restricted emergency use for corona patients?
You know, Rajdeep, let me start by saying that this is a breakthrough drug, because this is a drug that has been approved for an autoimmune condition, which is plaque psoriasis. And as the name suggests, when you talk about an autoimmune disease, this is caused by your immune system going a bit crazy. And the immune system starts producing cytokines, which then become very troublesome, and it causes a lot of these kind of diseases, including psoriasis. So when, COVID happened, and when we started understanding how COVID is actually being very serious and killing people, we realized that the patients and people are dying because of what they call as a cytokine release syndrome. And it is because your immune system becomes hyperactive. And that is what is then going out of control, causing inflammation and a very, life-threatening condition by this excessive cytokine release, which then basically kills the patient. So we thought that this is a drug that has worked very effectively with this mechanism of action, because it actually modulates the immune system, down-regulating cytokines. And we said we should try this for this particular indication. And, we've just completed the trial. And, I won't give you all the details, but suffice to say that this was an open label randomized trial where the control arm received standard of care and the experimental arm received Itolizumab on top of standard of care. And the outcome was so compelling because all the patients who were on the experimental drug recovered, and 30% of the patients in the control arm unfortunately died. So this basically tells you that Itolizumab works. And therefore, the drugs controller has given us this emergency use, which is also been given to drugs like remdesivir, because we need drugs at this time of crisis to treat this very, very grave disease.
Let me come to you, therefore, Dr. Thakkar. The DCGI has already approved not just Itolizumab, but also remdesivir, favipiravir, Covid-4, all of which, or some of which, are available now already in the market. Now you've got this new drug, Itolizumab. How is it different? Compare these various drugs that are available in the market at the moment. Do you really see them as cures for corona?
So, Rajdeep, there is really no cure for corona. The treatment of corona currently is to punctuate the virus's progress, to tame the virus, to trap the virus, and then let itself burn out so that the patient's immunity bounces back and the virus is attenuated and dies. To do that, there are many modalities of treatment. I have not less than 30 patients every day admitted with me, And when I see these patients, we define certain modalities of drugs. What you talked about, remdesivir and favipiravir, they are all antiviral drugs. So they act directly on the virus, but there is no antiviral drug like a malaria drug, which, okay, you give hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine and it kills the malaria parasite. No antiviral drug directly kills COVID-19. So these are supportive treatment. In that fashion, what Dr. Kiran rightly told you, the bug of corona is a nasty bug. It enters the system, it burrows itself into the system and starts triggering off chemical reactions which cause inflammation. And that it does through a set of inflammatory markers which we call interleukins, amongst other things. Now, in 85 to 90% of patients, the body immunity is good, and these inflammatory markers are killed by the body's immunity. But in about 10%, take here or there a few percent, the patient is not able to cope with the viral stimulated inflammatory markers, which are like interleukins, which, for example, is called interleukin 6. So for this, we need a immunomodulator or something which will block the action of the marker on the body. What are the actions? They produce clotting in the lungs, clotting in the hearts, they produce swelling in the breath passages, and so many other actions. So if you use an immunoblocker or immunomodulator, then the virus, by virtue of its trigger, it keeps triggering.
Let me turn to you for a moment, Dr. Joshi, because there is a sense with remdesivir, for example, that what it does is reduces the your dependence, let's say, on a ventilator when you are in that critical stage or a semi-critical stage. Would that be true of most of these drugs, that they work most effectively when you're facing a severe acute respiratory syndrome? You really are in a severe situation, in a critical situation, and that's when drugs including Itolizumab will work?
Rajdeep, that's pretty true. The most deserving cases need to get these drugs, and therefore in severe cases and moderate to severe cases where the drug control general has allowed, these drugs work the best. But you need to remember that the earlier you give these drugs, better will be the outcome. So if you give it in a moderate case before the lung storm sets in, then you can really save lives, because it's a life-saving drug. Currently our focus in COVID management is not about curing COVID, it is all about saving the life. And we know that our case fatality rate is 3 to 5%. It is better than the rest of the world, but we want to get it below 1%. And in that, all these small little things will matter. So remdesivir improves recovery time by a couple of days, but doesn't have an impact on mortality. It's an antiviral drug, works best in the first 9 days. But itolizumab is a true lifesaver because it prevents, or if there's a cascade of lung storm, which has already happened with all these chemicals, it can pull the patient out, it can clear up the lungs, it can reduce the need for oxygenation or ventilation. Most people don't need the ventilator, and all their biomarkers, which are the chemicals which we estimate in the blood, they all improve. So clearly, consistently, if you see beyond standard of care, this is a true life-saving drug which is available, and we should be very proud that it's a Make in India compound, originally available for plaque psoriasis, now available for cytokine storm of COVID patients from India. And I would like to congratulate Kiran Majumdar-Shaw madam that at least we have an indigenous drug now which is available, and they have done a very nice randomized trial to show its efficacy. But it's an emergency use drug, only to be used in moderate to severe cases.
You know, while it is an important marker to have an indigenously manufactured drug, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, the concern, of course, with drugs for corona so far, especially with remdesivir, has been the pricing and its availability. I know a number of people who have complained that they have not got easy access to the drug. This presumably, of course, comes from a hospital doctor's prescription in any case, but that apart, just the sheer pricing means that it is not, it's a drug that's not easily available to all. Is that a challenge that going forward to make the drug available on a mass scale at a price that is accessible to all?
You know, Rajdeep, the way I have to, answer this question is that we certainly believe that this is a very affordable biologic. if you were to look at the price point of this particular drug and for the life-saving efficacy that it has shown, I believe that spending 25 to 30,000 rupees is not hugely expensive. I think you're going to pull people away from the ventilator. You're saving lives, and I think that's a very, very affordable cost as far as I'm concerned.
But you're not telling me a cost at the moment, because
I did
between
mention
a
to you that
favipiravir, which is available at a relatively low cost, and a remdesivir at the top.
Rajdeep, as Dr. Shashank Joshi just mentioned to you, antivirals cannot be compared with a biologic immunomodulating antibody. Okay, I think remdesivir, as you know, is a very expensive drug when it is given to the patients, because it has to be given on a daily basis. This is generally most patients have to be given one dose. And as I mentioned, it costs about between 25 to 30,000 for the treatment. And I think that is a very affordable price point for a biologic. A biologic can be very, very expensive. And because we've developed it and made it in India, this is a very cost-effective, affordable biologic.
Dr. Thakkar, I was speaking to Soumya Swaminathan of the World, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan of the World Health Organization, and earlier Dr. David Nabarro of WHO, and they both mentioned dexamethasone being very effective, particularly in the United Kingdom. It's being widely used at the moment. Again, an immunosuppressant. Do you see the immunosuppressants in that sense being more effective? Is dexamethasone also something that Indian doctors are closely looking at?
So dexamethasone is a kind of steroid. We are using steroids. In fact, we use steroids quite early in the treatment. But steroids are only immune anti-inflammatory. They are not immunomodulators. They reduce inflammation. They reduce the swelling, which is why you cough less. They reduce the swelling in the airways, which is why you breathe better. They do nothing to block the inflammation through the workers of markers. And if you give only steroid without something like Itolizumab, you're going to flare up infection, because steroids only reduce inflammation, is a panacea. So dexamethasone, like I said, in 85-90% of patients, you don't need Itolizumab. So if you just give them dexamethasone, or if you give them nothing, they will get better. But you can't compare apples to tomatoes, because dexamethasone is a tomato and what I'm talking about is an apple. That is an immunomodulator, one is an anti-inflammatory. So dexamethasone is a steroid, and that we are anyway using. And on top of that, our patients who get a cytokine storm, who are still on steroids, need Itolizumab. And remdesivir is an antiviral. In fact, quite often we have used Itolizumab and prevented the use of remdesivir. When I began the study a month and a half ago, remdesivir was not available. And we got all our patients off the ventilator, or we prevented them from getting on the ventilator by using Itolizumab or like drugs. And I used, like I said, 21 patients. So we used Itolizumab at a time when remdesivir was not there, and patients improved.
And again, to clarify, Dr. Thakkar, this is for patients who are facing severe respiratory problems, am I correct? Not for those with mild symptoms?
Absolutely. It is for moderate to moderately severe, or for severe patients. Mild patients, they are definitely to be kept away from Itolizumab. Like I clarified, only 10% of COVID, maybe less, thankfully, will require drugs like this. The advantage of this drug, it's a single dose. We give it only once, and we don't need to repeat it, though the textbook says you might try again after 7 days. But I haven't had to repeat it, because the horse doesn't run away if you bolt the stable in time. So we've given it, and we've not had to give it again. I'm quite happy that in the taming of the virus, this is an important pillar which will help my patients to punctuate and to cage the virus and allow it to burn itself out while the body develops immunity. That is the name of the game with corona until a vaccine comes. There is no virus infection which has a specific antiviral to it. Whether you look at common cold, whether you look at measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, they all are vaccine treated. So until we get a vaccine, we need some pillars to stand on to allow the patient to recover in that 14-day nasty 2-week stormy period.
You know, it's very interesting. You speak about pillars. Dr. Joshi, Bangladesh is looking for its own pillars. I spoke to Bangladeshi doctors last month, and they claim they've been very successful in a mix of antibiotic, doxycycline, and ivermectin. And they've used that, they claim, rather successfully on corona patients. So is it that more and more countries are experimenting and looking for new ways of treatment and cures?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. I think we are looking at low-cost innovation, but don't mix antiviral or taming the virus versus immune modulators. What Itolizumab is a monoclonal antibody, which is actually modulating our immune system to actually, weather the storm, and that is a life-saving situation, and that is why it is very uniquely placed. And that is why these new novel therapies like doxycycline, ivermectin need to go in the research mode. And a very quick comment on dexamethasone. Dexamethasone in the recovery trial was only useful in the people who got mechanical ventilator. And here what we are trying to do by giving drugs like Itolizumab, we save that patient from a mechanical ventilator. So dexamethasone has been used in India for the last 40 years. Our doctors have been very good at using dexamethasone all throughout for any condition like a panacea. So that is very useful in a very, very late advanced stage. And you know that 88% of people in New York who are on mechanical ventilator died. So in UK also, people who are on mechanical ventilator, dexamethasone reduce mortality. But in absence of mechanical ventilator, dexamethasone is not going to work. Ivermectin, doxycycline, which Bangladesh is trying in a research mode, and even we are trying it in a research mode, still needs validation in a randomized control setup. But any low-cost option is welcome. But a monoclonal antibody is unique because it knows how to modify a tricky immune system, and that is what the virus does. The virus per se stimulates a hyperimmune or a hyper response, which actually kills our body. So our body is making its own chemicals, which is actually killing its lungs, killing its heart, killing its kidneys, and that is what this novel monoclonal antibody does, and that's why it's a biologic. So these biologics are very unique drugs, and they are not at all easy to make. Most countries are not able to make it. So we should be very proud that we have now a Make in India. Biofermentation is a very difficult technology, and biologics are very tough to make, and we are very proud that Indian manufacturers now can make such biologics which can work against corona, and they have shown it through a randomized control trial now.
And Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, presumably this will be, as we said earlier, available also beyond just the big cities, the major hospitals, because what we are seeing in recent weeks is the coronavirus now spreading into smaller towns, into areas where perhaps the medical infrastructure is not as strong as it is in some of the bigger cities.
So, Rajdeep, you will be pleased to know that there are many doctors in the smaller towns who are really getting a lot of benefit from this drug. In fact, one of the biggest users of this drug is in Sholapur. So, I think this is already being used off-label by many doctors because of the efficacy. And what I also want you to know, Rajdeep, is this is a unique drug. It is the only drug in the world with this kind of characteristics. It's the only anti-CD6 targeting antibody, to use the very technical term. So we are very pleased and proud that it has come out of India, and hopefully we will take it to other parts of the world.
You know, I want to ask you this, Dr. Thakkar, because Indian doctors and indeed drug manufacturers have a great reputation globally to be able to make these low-cost drugs. So this is an important marker, but in general, it is seen that we are a country which is at the forefront of making low-cost drugs. So to that extent, could India become a benchmark for other countries?
Absolutely. You know, with COVID, we have been thinking on our feet. With every new discovery of the methodology in the fight against COVID, we have come up with a new discovery, with a new picking out of the box thinking. And I'm so proud that when the Prime Minister says Atma Nirbhar, we have a drug which is taken from the shelf of Biocon, which they had used for psoriasis. And now we have used it, we have polished it, we have tried it, and now we are seeing shining results with it. So I think India, Indian doctors, Indian pharma, and India in general is thinking and is helping the world. And I'm sure we'll help the world, whether we lead or we don't, but we all have to join hands together. And I'm proud that we have these results. And this will help because the cure is a long way away. The vaccine also is a long way away. So I'm proud of this.
You know, I must ask you this, Dr. Joshi, in conclusion. When you look at recovery rates, because you're also associated with the Maharashtra COVID task force, recovery rates are slowly climbing 63-64%, and they're climbing, and mortality rates at the moment about 2.6 to 2.7%. Going forward, do you see now mortality rates coming down further even as the recovery rates continue to steadily climb upwards?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. I think our target is very clear. We want to get the mortality below 1%. And that's a clear target in Maharashtra. And we are working towards that. It's tough because we have a lot of comorbidities, senior citizens. But when such novel drugs come in, we definitely will be able to save many more lives who get severe and distressing complications. My only word of caution is that when we get these novel drugs, people should not indiscriminately use it. They should not hoard it. These are life-saving drugs and they should be reserved for the most deserving patients. But clearly we are looking at a less than 1% mortality, and clearly we are looking at better recovery rates as we pan into the pandemic. With monsoons coming up, it's a double whammy in Maharashtra. You know that monsoons are very tough, and therefore we are clearly focused on reducing the mortality beyond 1% with better recovery rates.
A quick final word also from you, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, just to ask you, your own city of Bengaluru has had a troubled last week, number of cases rising, but are you hopeful now that things much more under control than they perhaps were a week ago?
Well, I think certainly the administration has swung into action because I think there was a bit of complacency in the last few weeks. And I think they are now on top of the situation. They're certainly, ramping up testing. And I only hope that in the next few weeks, we will see better control and management of this pandemic, because I can tell you that it's a very difficult situation that we are going through right now.
Which is why I think that the fact that we now have an indigenously manufactured drug in Itolizumab is an opportunity perhaps to take that fight further and hope for better days ahead. We are in tough times, but tough times call for landmark moments, and this could be one of them in the race for a drug. Dr. Thakkar, Dr. Joshi, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, thank you very much for joining us on this India Today special. And thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.